The question haunted my darkest nights. What if every coincidence was actually divine appointment? I never imagined I would live the answer. There is a book in our sacred texts that never once speaks God's name aloud, yet you can feel his fingerprints on every single page. This is a story where prophetic timing crashes into human courage, where lots cast for your destruction become the very dates of your deliverance. My name is Hadassah, but you will come to know me as Esther. My story begins not in a palace, but in the shadow of exile, an orphaned Jewish girl raised by my devoted cousin, Mordecai. The world shifted when King Xerxes, ruler of the greatest empire on earth, threw a party that defied all imagination. For 6 relentless months, the capital of Susa became a stage for unimaginable wealth. I could hear the celebrations even from our modest home. The air itself smelled of spiced wine and privilege. Golden couches rested on mosaic floors of mother of pearl, and no two drinking cups were alike, each a unique masterpiece of staggering value. This was not mere celebration. It was a calculated display of absolute, terrifying power designed to crush any thought of rebellion. The king's final, week-long feast for every citizen, from the greatest to the least, ended in a single catastrophic decision. Drunk on wine and his own authority, Xerxes demanded his queen, Vashti, appear wearing only her crown. His command was not a request, it was an order. The entire palace held its breath. When her refusal echoed through the marble halls, the shock was colder than any winter. The king's fury was a physical force, and Vashti was banished forever, her crown torn away for the crime of dignity. With the queen's throne empty, a desperate, unprecedented search began. Royal scouts scoured 127 provinces for the most beautiful virgins. I was tending to my home when they saw me. Their eyes, assessing and devoid of emotion, saw only a lovely figure. My heart pounded with a terror I could not show. Before I was taken to the king's palace, Mordecai gripped my shoulders, his voice low and urgent. "You must hide your heritage, Hadassah. Tell no one you are Jewish. Your life depends on this secret." His warning became my truth. The palace harem was a gilded cage, a world of perfumed intrigue and silent competition. Under the watchful eye of Hegai, the king's eunuch, I spent a full year in preparation. 6 months with the pungent sacred oil of myrrh, another 6 with exotic perfumes and cosmetics. For reasons I never understood, Hegai favored me. He gave me the best rooms, the most attentive servants. I trusted his counsel completely, and when my turn came to meet the king, I asked for nothing except what he advised. It was a decision that would change everything. The night I was led to the king's private chambers, my body trembled beneath the fine linens. The air was thick with the scent of sandalwood and absolute power. King Xerxes, seated on a throne that seemed to swallow the light, looked at me. His gaze was intense, weighing, and then it softened. He was captivated. The relief was so profound it felt like weakness. He placed the royal crown upon my head, and I, the secret Jewish orphan, became Queen of Persia. The celebration he threw in my honor echoed across the empire. Yet, even in my unimaginable new position, Mordecai's warning was my constant companion. I continued to hide my true identity, a secret that grew heavier with each passing day. Mordecai, ever watchful, had positioned himself at the king's gate. He was my only link to my old life, my silent guardian gathering whispers and secrets from the flow of officials and servants. He was building an invisible web of intelligence, a network I did not yet realize would become our only hope for survival in the dangerous games of the palace. It was there, at the gate, that Mordecai overheard the deadly whispers. 2 of the king's most trusted guards, Bigthana and Teresh, their voices hushed with treason, were plotting to assassinate Xerxes. The danger was immediate and real. My cousin, with no official power, had to get this information to the king. His only path was through me. The message he smuggled to me was brief and terrifying. With a heart full of fear, I reported the plot, carefully giving credit to Mordecai. The conspirators were executed, and his service was recorded. This act of loyalty was quietly written into the royal chronicles, and then it seemed forgotten. The wheels of fate continued to turn, and the king promoted a new vizier, a man named Haman. He was an Agagite, a descendant of the ancient Amalekites, our people's eternal enemies. The king commanded that everyone at the gate must bow down to him. I heard the decree from within my quarters, a cold knot forming in my stomach. It was a command that would ignite a fire that threatened to consume us all, but Mordecai would not bow. Day after day, as Haman passed through in all his pompous glory, my cousin remained standing, a solitary figure of defiance. The other officials were horrified, pleading with him to save his life. I can only imagine the tension that crackled in that space. When they finally asked him why, he gave them the reason that sealed our fate. I am a Jew, he told them. That single, unwavering confession, born of a faith that would not bend, was about to bring the full force of hell upon our people. When Haman learned that Mordecai, a Jew, was the source of his public humiliation, his rage was not limited to one man. His pride, wounded and festering, conceived a plot of monstrous proportions. He would not be satisfied with only Mordecai's death. He wanted annihilation. He cast lots, the pur, to determine the perfect date for our destruction, and the dice fell on the 13th day of Adar, nearly a year away. This was not chance. It was a dark ritual, giving him time to meticulously plan the genocide of every Jew in the empire. He went to the king with poisoned words, painting my people as a scattered, disobedient threat to the empire's unity. He never mentioned Mordecai or his wounded pride. Instead, he offered a bribe of 10,000 talents of silver, a king's ransom, for the privilege of destroying us. The king, without a second thought, gave Haman his signet ring, granting him unlimited authority. The moment that ring left Xerxes' finger, a death warrant for thousands was signed. The machinery of extermination began to turn, its wheels greased with royal approval and ancient hatred. The decree was written in every language of the empire, a masterpiece of evil. It authorized the total destruction of my people, men, women, and children, on that single appointed day. It encouraged neighbors to plunder our goods as payment for murder. When the cries of my people reached the palace gates, they were muffled by stone, but I felt them in my soul. Mordecai put on sackcloth and ashes, his wails of grief a stark contrast to the quiet luxury of my rooms. His public mourning was a desperate signal meant for me alone. My maids brought me the terrible news, their faces pale with fear. I sent Mordecai clean clothes, a queen's feeble attempt to fix what could not be mended. He refused them. I knew then the crisis was absolute. Through my trusted eunuch, Hathach, I received the full, horrifying truth. The decree, the date, the price on our heads. Mordecai's message was clear. Do not think that because you are in the king's house you will escape. You will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your position for such a time as this? His words struck my heart with the force of a hammer. For such a time as this. My entire life, my orphanhood, my unlikely queenship, was it all converging on this single, terrifying moment? The choice was before me. Remain silent in safety and die later with my people, or speak now and probably die today. I made my decision. I sent word back. Gather all the Jews in Susa. Fast for me for 3 days. My maids and I will do the same. Then I will go to the king. though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. For 3 days and nights, Susa was silent except for the prayers of my people. We did not eat or drink. We sought only divine strength. On the third day, I dressed in my most magnificent royal robes. The fabric felt heavy, like a shroud. I stood at the inner court, my breath catching in my throat. The king was on his throne, and when he saw me, his expression was unreadable. The silence stretched, an eternity in a second. Then he slowly extended his golden scepter. I touched its tip, my legs trembling with relief. He asked me my request, promising me up to half his kingdom. This was my moment, but a deeper wisdom told me to wait. Instead of revealing my pain, I invited him and Haman to a banquet. I needed the king deeper in his affection, and I needed Haman there to expose his treachery face to face. The banquet was lavish, the wine flowed, and the king, pleased and generous, asked me again for my petition. Yet once more I delayed, inviting them both to another feast the next night. I was playing the most dangerous game of my life. That night, consumed with arrogance from his exclusive invitation, Haman saw Mordecai at the gate, still defiant. His rage returned, fresh and violent. At the urging of his wife and friends, he built a towering gallows 75 feet high in his courtyard, intending to ask the king in the morning for permission to impale Mordecai. His hatred was so blind he could not see the net closing around him. At that very same hour, divine providence intervened. The king could not sleep, and in his restlessness, he had the royal chronicles read to him. The scrolls were unrolled, and the reader's voice filled the silent chamber. He came to the entry detailing how Mordecai had exposed the assassination plot. The king, startled, asked, "What honor has been given to Mordecai for this?" The answer was nothing. At that exact moment, Haman arrived in the outer court, eager to request Mordecai's execution. The king summoned him in and asked, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Blinded by pride, Haman thought the king meant him and suggested the highest honors imaginable: a royal robe, the king's own horse, a parade. The king's next words must have felt like a physical blow. "Go at once," Xerxes commanded. "Get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Jew." The man who came to secure a death sentence was instead forced to lead his mortal enemy through the streets, proclaiming his glory. The humiliation was complete. Haman rushed home, his head covered in grief, his wife speaking a terrifying prophecy. "If Mordecai is a Jew, you cannot stand against him." Before he could recover, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried him to my second banquet, where his doom awaited.